GWSR. We've done a couple presentations already. I see some familiar faces from that. Oh, there's Carrie. She's also going to help us present today. I'm a media specialist, K-12, and we are just excited to we're not actually affiliated as far as paid by AEA, but we work under AEA, being an AEA specialist field in our districts, and we just thought it was important to have a session that really drove home why we have AEA databases, why we have to push them to our staff and students, and what is the purpose, and what's the fight between Google and databases and things like that. So hopefully, we're also going to take a look at most of the databases that are available to us free, and pros and cons, and like I said, the what's and the why, all that stuff of it is important, and we need to be doing it, and we need 100% buy-in in our districts. So I'll pass it over to Nicole.
My name is Nicole Guldager, and I am the teacher librarian K-12 and K-12 tag teacher at Green Mountain Darwin. And my interest in this is that as a tag instructor and a librarian, I often go into the classrooms and try to help, like when they start research projects, to give them resources. And it would be awesome if we all had the exact print resources that students would need, but for those, we all understand how expensive print resources are, and we all have at least, 11 or 12 databases through AEA that are provided completely free to us. And so I feel like my job is to constantly be telling teachers, don't let your kids Google. Like in my perfect world, a teacher would say you need print resources and you need databases, and not accept any Google searches for things. Because as much as we tell kids, you can Google all you want, but they don't understand that those resources aren't tried and true and vetted and all those kind of things. So I try to get into PD a couple times a year to talk to teachers about why we need to use them and try to get them on board so they get the students on board.
I just have to say, I used to work at an AEA, and now I'm working with the district. And our AEA, the state dropped, and our AEA dropped a couple of smaller databases that we had, and we had to pick them up. And that's my whole budget. But I thought they were really important, and I don't think schools really know the kind of bang for your buck that we're getting with these databases. Try to buy them as an independent school. And so we felt so strongly about it. We did pick up 3, but then that eliminates all of our other choices. So
when I first got to my district, my teachers, I would say 80% of them didn't even know about the AEA databases. And it's not that AEA wasn't providing the materials, but you all know teachers are so jammed with paperwork and emails and flyers and stuff, they just weren't taking the time to learn about them. But it was finally when I asked my principal, can I have a half an hour of this full PD or an hour, whatever it was, and I pulled it up and showed him how easy it was to use and how most of the databases have like a cited button. The kids you're not going to be correcting 9,000 citation mistakes, and you don't have to worry about going out into Google to find these kids' websites. If you just require them to use these databases, not only are the teachers' jobs easier, but we're preparing the kids, because no way in college are they going to be allowed to just Google search something and then just put it out on a research paper. And I say to kids all the time, I kind of make it a challenge when I go into the classrooms. Of these 11 databases, I've yet to find a student who wants to research something that we can't find on those databases. We got everything from Botanica Online to Teen Health and Wellness. In the SIRS one, anything and everything. I've never, in 5 years of doing it, had a kid say, well, I want to research this, and we couldn't find it on the AEA resources. Because what's nice is most of them have, if they don't have the information right on the database, they'll say, here's the best of the web. So they found websites outside of the database to lead kids to. So that's kind of my end of it, because I can see teachers be frustrated with kids just going into Google and finding the first site they have found. And I don't know where this was fitting into our presentation, but I'll just say it here. in my last district I was in, I worked with a science teacher, and they each had to pick a planet, and I picked Mars, and I know nothing about Mars, and I always tell the kids, collectively, of everybody in this entire district, I know less about Mars than the whole district put together. I know less than whatever, but I'm really good at making websites, and I created a website about Mars, and I just pulled and made up facts and everything else, and we searched it enough where it was coming up pretty high on the Google, search, and then kids were using it purposefully so. But we didn't let them get too far into it. But then when we pointed out, anybody can create this website, and how do you know? And I've even had teachers and administrators say to me, well, if they find it 3 places on the internet, then they can trust it. Well, how many kids are going to actually go and find the surface temperature of Mars on 3 websites to make sure it's listed the same? Why would you go to all that work when you could just go to an AEA database and get that information?
And not only that, but we were talking lately about all the fake news stuff, and how I've noticed on Facebook some of our local news stations have posted fake news thinking it was real news because they've seen it 3 or 4 times. And it cracks me up because our local stations now are falling to the pitfalls of, the picture of the planes in the Houston, I don't know if you saw that, but the Houston airport. That's a fake picture. And it was on, I can't remember if it was KWWL or KCRG, posted that and started talking about the flooding. And it was a fake picture. And of course, people that know better were typing that out on the comments. But so if even that's fake, imagine Google,
Well, and I just wanted to add one more thing, because I've read some research about not having kids wonder if it's fake or not, but say this is a fake site, and tell me all the reasons why it is.
Yeah.
Help them learn the skills, all the reasons why the Pacific Northwest
I use this one. I use this
Instead
one.
of
That's my favorite
saying,
one.
is it or not, tell them up front it is. There's good research behind this. And then take those same set of questions you asked for this site and a site that you trust, and help them develop the skills.
Well, what I do with this one actually is, and I should have put it probably on our resource, which I was going to show really quick. Our resource, by the way, is on the iTech thing. It looks like this, and our session is right here. So if you go back to it. But anyway, so the Pacific Northwest Tree Octopus, I actually made a quiz for this website, and then at the very, number 20 or 21 or whatever, at the end it says, okay, did you really think the site was real? And it's so fun to watch kids be like, what? And then we do exactly what you're saying. We go back and we separate it out, why this, even the most legitimately looking website can be fake. And then it leads into the AEA databases versus Googling and stuff. So, is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, it's new information to me to not even go through those quizzes, but to say up front. And I'm trying to think who it is, a gal from Hawaii, Violet Harada, and some of her research. This is fake, and these are the criteria, and teach them the criteria and have them establish why it's fake.
Well, and what's scary is now all
Because
those kids now are taking that criteria as 25-year-olds and making even better fake ones.
Yes.
Another thing about fake is the URLs themselves, the domains. I don't know how many of you knew this, but during the election there was a domain, and it wasn't Jeb Bush. It was, who was it? Yeah, it was Jeb Bush. If you went to jebbush.com, it came up Trump's webpage. So kids that were Googling Jeb Bush, or if they were, or whatever, they were coming to a Trump page, which, whether you like Trump or not, I thought that's quite the marketing.
There's also that, it's martinlutherking.org, and when you go to that, it's actually a site promoting white supremacy. So if you're just having kids Google, once you get to Martin Luther King Day, the history of it and stuff, they go to it thinking, and there's actual flyers they can download and everything promoting white supremacy and that accuse him of all sorts of crazy things. So I think the easiest way for me to sell, it's not so hard for me to sell it to students to use the database. As soon as I say it's one-stop shopping, you don't have to Google and sift and sort, you just have to go to these databases and use it. And the second part is it's current, it's up to date. Some of those databases are updated daily. Like after the elections last year, it's right there. There's nothing worse than getting a bunch of research done and at the bottom, the publication information is 4 years ago. You know, so it's not so hard. What's hard for me in my situation is getting the teachers to require it because my teachers aren't yet as comfortable with it. But I think that comes in part of my job is to keep promoting it to teachers and getting them information as it comes out. Here are the new books on BookFlix, and here's the new information on ScienceFlix.
Well, I think that's what we were going to start with, is how many of you are teachers in here and not media people? Are there any just teachers in here, like classroom teachers? Are there any media people, media specialists, librarians? I mean, that's the hard part for us teacher, librarians, media specialists, whatever we call ourselves in the same field, is that we're preaching to the choir. You guys all know it, but it's going to take the teachers to buy into it. And what I found for myself is my first year when I took the job, I just picked 2 teachers and basically begged them, would you please just do this project and only do the AEA databases, just this one project, and see how it goes. And then those teachers then started using it as a rule. Then the next year I added a couple more teachers, and the next year I added a couple more teachers, and I'm at the point now, I've been there in this role 9 years, but 14 altogether. But now it's the other side of it. Now I have 3 or 4 teachers still not doing it. But the problem with that is it only takes one teacher not doing it to completely screw it up for everybody. Because those kids latch on to, well, he lets us Google, so what's the big deal? Because you're not going to be able to do that when you go to college. You're not going to be able to, you know, aside from the obvious things that she's already been talking about, they can't do that when they get to college. They have to go through the databases that that school offers. And so if we're setting them up for a life outside of, you know, our 4 walls, we need to have them doing this. And just on a side note, my son goes to Iowa State, and he said, about his sophomore year, 2 years ago, he called me and he made the comment that he was supposed to do some with databases, blah, 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 with his, and the kids in the room had no idea how to do it, what was going on, and he, I don't know what he texted me or probably messaged me, whatever, and just said, oh my gosh, I totally knew how to do it all because you forced that down our throat so bad. So, you know, I mean, and I always tell the kids at school, it's like, you will do this someday and you will thank me, but this is what you're going to do. And the bad part is when you have a teacher that won't follow it as the media specialist person, you're basically frying them in a frying pan. Because, you know, the kids are like, well, he lets us in, it's like, and he's wrong. And you know what I mean? It's like, how do you not do that, but at the same time get your point across? So anyway, that's a challenge I got. I'm assuming some of you others that are shaking your head have met that challenge also. And you know, the whole thing about copyright, well, it's not going anywhere, it's just for my class. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you're still, anyway, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as for as many librarians that are in here and for the teachers too, I think the biggest thing is that we can talk to them each individually, but to stand up and do a professional development on AEA resources. And Cheryl in some of those, I mean, my very first year, she actually came out to the school I was in and did it for me because I wasn't yet comfortable, but she stood up and, you know, it was somebody outside the district that, you know, they weren't new to the district or untrusted yet. Do they still do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You should have someone in contact with your agency that would do that. I know I work through Central Rivers, and so that's one of my responsibilities and roles is to work with the content area. And oftentimes, I don't sell them in isolation.
What?
I don't sell them in isolation. So I talk about implementation is my goal. So we're going to talk about how we're using these resources, not what these resources are, but let's going to use them and let's do something with them, and let's do it in that approach, because too often they're just separate in a silo, and that's not how they need to be.
And actually having them read or view or consume content from the database, as opposed to it will do this, 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 and the next one will do this, 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 and the next one will do this, this, this. Pick one and actually use and consume content is absolutely huge. And I'm saying that after being at the AEA for a number of years and now working with a single district. It is amazing getting their eyes on it, and they've found the ImageQuest picture, or they found the Britannica article, and they've actually read it at that seat. And that's different from having an in-service and just looking at it and walking out the door. And I learned that the hard way because I felt I was trying really hard before that.
We're gonna kind of model something that I found worked really well, because I do both. I do the big PD stuff, but I also do the picking a teacher and, you know, and so hitting it both directions. But one thing I learned a few years ago about selling the AA databases to your staff is this, we're gonna model it here in a few minutes, but obviously it's gonna be condensed. So it's gonna be closer to what you are saying we shouldn't do, but it gives you an idea of what you can do. And actually, a lot of teachers got on board, especially at the middle school level for some reason, got on board with using AA databases after the modeling thing, because it does make you look at them. So when we're done talking, we'll start that.
And I think another clue is to start them as young as possible. Like I had teachers say to me, oh, they can't do that, they're, you know, in second grade or whatever. And they would want to have the databases up and what passwords in and it all ready to go and looking pretty. And I just like a blank slate. And it takes me, it's hilarious because I'll time them and it'll take them 25 minutes to type in the URL, type in your the school's user ID and password. And then they get so frustrated because I say, okay, now click log out. And then we do it again, and now we're going to do it in less than 10 minutes, and now we're going to do it in less than 5. And usually within the first 2 class periods, I can get a first or a second grader to type in that URL. And that's a lesson in itself. What is a URL? Where do you find it? How is that different than typing it into Google? I mean, they can be responsible for typing in that URL and putting in their user ID and password. So then when they go home, I mean, it does us no good to teach them open up an iPad and click the book flicks, because they could never use it at home. They're not going to have that iPad set up. But if we teach them how to put in the URL, give them the little free bookmarks, AEA will print out black and white free bookmarks with all the databases and your URL, or your password and ID, so they can take it home and show their families. It can be accessed from home if they have internet. But I start them in like 1st and 2nd grade doing all of that. So my hope is by the time they get to high school, you know, it's second nature to them. Because like by the time I did it last year in 4th grade, they had just finished up a big state project. Well, it's my only 3rd year in the district. So as we started working on databases, they're like, oh, we could use culturograms for our state project. And I'm like, okay, now nobody even told me you were doing a state project. If you were looking for information, you know, come and find me. But my hope is that the younger we start them and the more regular it is, that it's something they can use.
I was just going to mention with some of the, like the app you mentioned, if you do a literacy night at your elementary or in your middle school, invite your agency to come in. I've gone in and I've helped parents when they bring their devices get the apps on their devices and give them the information so that way they can use Macadamia, book clicks, those type of things with their students at home. And so if you have a literacy night, this might be a good opportunity for you to connect with the agency and a selling point for some of those resources.
And one thing that I do a little differently than Nicole does, by the way, we do a lot of stuff together. That's why we're doing our presentations together. But we have, one thing we do a little bit different is that I actually don't do a lot of the cards and stuff from and I don't mean, it's not that I don't appreciate from the AEA, but I do it more locally. So I put these in every classroom, but the username and password is obviously on there. I just took them off for here. But I put one in every single classroom. I give one to all the administrators. Everybody's got it in there. Even the administrators have it up on their cork board. It's in the offices. One goes home with every kid. So, and I have it on a password protected place that the kids can get to. So it's everywhere. I just completely hammer the district with these. And bookmarks too. They get bookmarks from me. But I don't have up here in what I was going to say is different than using that. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying it's your preference or what works with your teachers. For my district, it helped me with my district. But I actually have a library that I set up myself and put all the AA databases on it. So all our students know is to pick your elementary, middle, or high school, and then there's your AA databases. Because one of the reasons I did that too was because we actually have a paid for one from our district, the Salem Press. So I had the Salem Press set up to be the same username and password as the AA stuff, because the kids don't care, you know? They have no idea. And I hate to say that because we're very appreciative that AEA gives us these databases, but when you really think about it, the students don't care. Just give us the stuff. And the more easier I've made it, and the more, because I started this with them in kindergarten. So in kindergarten, they're already seeing this, they're going to the Gale database, InfoBits, so every year now it's just kind of commonplace. And by the grace of the good Lord, the teachers have really gotten on board with the library. If nothing else, they've gotten on board with the library website. And most of the home pages in our district actually start with the library website. And then, anyway, so that's helped a lot because of a one-stop shop. A lot of time, I learned this from Marshalltown librarian, because she was having the same problem. You know, high school kids were like, I don't want to click that much. I don't want to have to go, you know, so she said, make a one-stop shop, your numbers will go up. And ours did. I'm not saying every district is, but for us it did. It made a big difference with all the posters around and just making it almost seem like it was our districts and not this global mass thing that they never lay eyes on. It made them more, but it could be too, because I've been there for 14 years and like I said, 9 in this one, and it's just a little more. So anyway, go ahead. Anything else on this? Are you guys interested in trying like a PD thing that we've done before that we think kind of works? Did you want to say anything else before we do that?
No.
If you on that one thing we did point out on that thing that you have that you can get through the resources page, I found a really good thing through Yale, the web versus library databases. And on the left is all the web, and on the right are databases, and it talks about the difference. So if you want to brush up on that before you talk to your staff or students, just to, a good defense is to have a good offense is to have a good defense, then this is a really good resource for you to turn to for some of those specifics. And because most of us are media specialists, we won't go into this because you can read it yourself, but
One thing that Beth said to me one time that I now repeat to my teachers and my students to try to get them to understand is that it's not that Google is bad, because they're so ingrained in we'll just Google it. We're going to Google it. And that's second nature to them. And so I don't ever want to demonize Google, because you'll instantly shut them off and they stop listening to you. So one thing Beth had said, and I'm not sure if I'll say it exactly the same, if you just want to find out, for instance, who won the World Series in 1978, Google it. But if you want to find out what pitcher, pitched a no-hit game during the fifth game of the series, and find out information about him, you want the details of where he was from and how he lived and where he went to college and all that good stuff, then turn to a database. But if you just want a surface fact, whatever it might be. It's not that Google is bad, but it's not where you want to go to research. So it has a time and a place.
Brainstorming is perfect with Google.
It's not in depth.
Right.
Collaborating, brainstorming.
I think as a profession we need more examples of those types of things, because I'm not sure what database would give you your second one, an in-depth of that picture in the fifth. So we need a set of statements that this would be acceptable, Google search, get it, it's going to find, a quick link on how to make a chocolate souffle, but, who invented it? I don't know if that's a Britannica article, it could be, but we really do need those examples and share them amongst our peers so that we have that at the ready.
That's a good idea. I think, if you look at this other link that's on, is that what that is? I can't remember. We made it and I don't even remember. We've presented 3 times today, so I'm a little bit.
Yeah.
On ideas, on ideas here, that's a place that you guys can go to, just exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
That all of you can access later. We left it open because we were hoping you guys would fill it. But back to this one, where to go?
My biggest problem is trying to sell the AEA databases, and I understand why, and you do, that they're individual companies providing them. So every time you go from Bookflix to Britannica to whatever, you have to re-put in that user ID and password. And so until it becomes familiar with them, they have to remember to use that over and over. But still, I can say back to them, okay, what's going to take you longer, typing in those 10 characters or Googling it and writing a research paper to get it handed back to you to say you've got false information? So I mean, it's not
Yeah.
those databases are amazing, and I can't even imagine if the schools had to pay for all of those ourselves. I mean, that's just thousands upon thousands of dollars of free information for the schools, to use. So us not taking advantage of it is almost, in my opinion, like a slap in the face. I mean, they're going to the trouble to see how much our schools are using them, and if one's not getting used, to drop it to pick up another one that might be better used. So I just kind of feel like it's our position, not only as teachers and librarians, to get the students to use it, but
And I think with high school, like I noticed, and it's different, like when you work with K through 3, you approach it this way. When you're working with the middle groups, you approach it I know, like I said, with middle school, it's very much like hands-on, like we're gonna do here in a few minutes. Like they like that. And elementary is more like, well, how can I make it easier for them to get to it, And in high school, every time I say to them, are you preparing your students for a world outside of school? If you are, then you need to do that. That's the bottom line. And that works with them, usually, because then they feel guilty. I hate to say it, but then they're like, well, yeah, it's like, we need to teach them good Google searching. I'm not saying that that's not also a good skill. But if they're going on to a secondary school, that's what they'll be using. I always tell, too, one of my things, I went to a junior college first, so when I went into Iowa State, I was a junior in education, and I didn't take any education classes until that point. When you go 4 years at Iowa State, they're already taking some of those by the time they're juniors. So I went in there, and I'll just never forget when they said, you need 3 journal articles. And I was like, I thought that was a diary. You know what I mean? I didn't even know what a journal article was. Because my high school, small town, I graduated with 29 kids. We didn't have journal articles, any of that kind of stuff. And I was completely baffled by the whole thing, and I didn't want to ask anybody. I finally had to break down and do it. And they're like, what's at the library? I'm like, oh, because I was never a library user, which is hilarious, I'm a librarian now. But anyway, so they finally, I was like, I guess so. So they took me over there. There's an entire room of these journals. And I'm like, I didn't even know those existed. And I just feel like it's the same theory. If we don't make our high school kids do this stuff, they're going to go to the next level, and you need 3 online journal articles, write to People Magazine or Google or whatever, because they don't know that they even are what they
what
are.
percent do you feel like? Do you feel like at least 50% of your teachers know enough about the databases to use them?
Probably our high school English, that's about it.
High school English. And now that they've added Science Flicks, I don't know if you've done much with Science Flicks, but that's like a science encyclopedia basically. And that has some amazing stuff on there.
Well, how many of you guys, like when you're sitting in, I'm sure all, especially the media specialists in the room, you go to these PD things where half of it doesn't apply to you. Because most of us are our onlys in our districts or whatever. Well, one thing I've started doing, and I'm so annoying, but we'll be in a whole room like this talking some PD thing, and all of a sudden I'll be like, hey, erasers. They'll talk about something where that would work well, and it's like, I'll just fire it up from my corner. And that would be great for the AEA databases, just saying. And so, and over time, it does start, people make fun of you. I get made fun of all the time about it. And my favorite is when somebody sees me Google something. I saw that. You use Google. I'm like, and then it comes, it's like, well, it has a place.
Yeah. One thing that has helped us is we're moving to blended learning. We're now 1-to-1, so we're doing blended learning, so we need content. So the health teacher is using Teen Health and Wellness as his textbook.
That's perfect.
It's all online, and it's just fabulous. And so he didn't know anything about it before he started saying, I need some content to put in my Moodle online class. And it was like, well, you're just in luck. We have that. And that's really how we are reconnecting it, is because they need content, and they need it online, and they can get it in this fashion.
And
so if your schools are doing that, don't be shy about bringing that up.
Well, the hard part with a couple of those, and that's one of them, is there's a front end and there's a back end. So when you teach that with students, they immediately like, well, there it is. It's like, well, that's the front end, but if you log in, then you get in, you know what I mean? So there's 2 parts to that. But yeah, I love Teen Health Wellness, and I love like the hotline. There's more than just the database there. There's a whole bunch of things for kids there. Do we want to do our little thingy thing? So what we did is we started a slideshow that you guys can all access by going to the resource page and going to So when you go to our research page, it'll look like this. Then you choose AEA resources and then choose a closer look. And what we're going to do is we're going to give each of you a slide number. On there will be a specific database we want you to look at and some questions. And then we're going to do a share out. And like I said, this is what I did with middle school teachers. They all got, and I heard a lot of people in the room saying things like, I didn't even know that this existed. I didn't even know this would be great for. So we thought maybe we would do it with you guys just to model that that's one thing you could do, take back to your room or to your buildings to kind of give everybody a taste of it. So we're just going to randomly, do you guys want to do 3? Sure. You 2 want to do number 4? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to help them out?
Yep, if you go to the ITech page,
Yeah.
at the very top of it, it says resources. And then scroll down to this session.
Type in search AEA.
You guys can do number 5. Is that okay?
To what?
Some.
Where does it go?
Should I just do a new
Oh,
channel?
technology class.
Is that okay? What? I'm sorry.
Technology class, just a little
Oh,
bit
okay.
of everything.
So then click on this.
Did you find it?
Looking through flex.
The link is right on the, well, it's right on that slide. Yeah.
There's resources.
Fall 2017 resources. There you go. So if you go to the iTech website, way up at the top.
I'm on that and I'm not resources.
Yeah, Wix is really
Or
crazy.
you can even search, like, search Jansen,
Do you want to
J-A-N-S-S-E-N.
use my computer? I have another computer back here.
Yeah, I can't get to it that way. I always have to go up to the very top and then do resources. Look up and then do 2017 fall.
No, me too.
What slides did you do?
Then you go back off it.
So,
And now scroll down on your page. There you go.
And then if you go to the top, if you go to the first slide, the link is there.
And so there's 2 books there. One's fiction and one's nonfiction.
Big four. They're bordering and they're four.
I saved my sister last night and I just.
Do they also have their school user ID and password?
Oh, yeah.
I can give ours out. No, I can give the agency one.
Yeah, do you guys all know your own
If you don't know
tools?
your own and you need access, let me know and I'll come around and I'll give you our agency.
So if you open up a new tab and do IEA. Okay, sorry. Yep.
nonfiction, it will read it to you if you want, you need to click through it.
The rest of the week.
I don't know, I mean, I know that they do this.
I'm gonna go to that and get back in 10:30 now. I heard
Then it goes on.
Yeah, I just didn't have my cord to reach.
So why don't we then pull up each one and just go through it? You think that's okay? You don't have a lot of stuff ahead of it.
You can search, it's not loading. I think they do on that. And then they lose the bar.
Are you stuck on the Iowa Event Center? It's not gonna be weird.
What are you looking for?
Oh, I just was trying to find
Okay,
this, but
sorry.
fly at the end. Oh, they're not coming up. No. Which one are you guys doing?
No.
Was it eight book and TrueFlex?
And you know what, I think you should sell it to like middle school or high school, like you have a babysitter, and like stuck at home with your little brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they can, cause book clubs is more stories out loud, like picture books read out loud and stuff. So a lot of times middle school, upper elementary will think, oh, we're too old for that. But using it at babysitting, how much more impressed will your family, with the family be if you can say, oh, we read these online books instead of they play Nintendo or whatever else.
We have a local library which got AEA access to access graphic novels and things like that. I'm not sure where we're at in that, but
What school are you at?
Burlington,
So what's your age?
Great Prairie.
Well, see, the Iowa AEA online has the ones that are to all the schools. It's just IowaAEAonline.org. So, yeah, if you can partner up with your school library. But my kids can spend hours.
Middle school,
I mean, sometimes if they're like,
right now I'm all sixth grade, so they would,
Well, you know, the other one, that new one is, Freedom Flip. Oh, it's anything from the Titanic, Judy Fergus to
well,
it's all the flip, yeah.
We'll just do a couple
If
more
it's
minutes.
still, that will have like a book on the left, on the right side, and then like a little minute or two teaser video. So if they can watch this little video on Titanic, it's a little bit about what's in the book. So the book is like even more. And what's nice is all those books will read it to them out loud if you want to. And some of the books even will have like this little red like thing. And if you click on it, it takes you to even more places. So you know, like, well, I don't know what the fascination is with Titanic, but
well,
they all love this Titanic.
back when I was in second grade, I was fascinated with
Yes.
Titanic.
Yeah. So,
I want to thank my second grade teacher. It kept me interested in school.
oh, definitely. Well, and as a librarian, when you figure the average price of a nonfiction book is $25 or more, this is very valuable. Because if I have a kid who's exhausted all my Titanic books, I can take them, they can find stuff on TrueFlix, they can find stuff on FreedomFlix, they can find stuff on Britannica Online. You know, it can keep them interested for a lot longer. And I like it because every topic has all this things more. There's like little projects they can do, you know, all that extra stuff that, you know, you could take it beyond your lesson there if they're interested to continue. What was that?
What was it?
Show like Titanic.
It's like print. What is that?
Related interview and
Yeah, there's
that's the way Vietnam. But this is their citation.
What are you guys talking about?
She asked me how I had so many removed technification.
Oh, nice.
TrueFlex and BookFlex.
Science books. One thing that I went to the Fall Teacher Library and went to the conference, and it says it's for grades 4 through 12 right here, but when I looked at it, like, I tried to more, trying to figure out what I mean, 11 is what I get out of it. It would be good. It would be good basis. I don't, that was one of the things everybody was coming up with at the conference. Well, maybe like up to 10.
Yeah, but we're just elementary, so that's fine. But-
Yeah.
Sure.
So does it go, was it lower than?
For elementary.
For upper grades? Just that, yeah. I like
Reference.
No, you're, no, I'm.
Do you ever go to math?
I'm
We need to say both, non-fiction and
So
fiction.
it's not like they have to go
I mean,
outside.
we're talking
So I
about
was
the
thinking,
rules that they don't know.
It's just like you
Pull that up.
So you do that 2 years later in my library site. Yeah. So there's music that's on the board. Do you have your own library site?
Yeah, we do, but she has little, I can't even.
Oh, yeah, that's what you gotta take it for. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, that's easy. You just have
You said which is non-fiction.
Well, she has resource made.
Look what I, yeah.
Just needs to make her.
She says there won't be.
Well, she's got it on Google Doc, the art guy.
Yes.
That's why.
That's
Are you like on
Yeah, I know.
science? Like it says officially it's grades 4 through 12, but rigorous questionable.
Is that legal?
Yeah. Heartland, that's what I did when I showed you up there.
Science, like one of the
She
things
already
they
did
said,
that.
and I don't know too much about science. But read can be adjusted.
Why do some of these have?
So it must have like other things on like science, like must have that as well.
You know, back to fiction and non-fiction, book matchup, are they similar books? Are they just books? Or? So I saw that.
So what is that MDR? What's the lowest? I would go with the lowest.
You at this time, and I get that when I was in
The other nice thing is that they have an extension like on the science book that says share in a classroom. So if you
That's what I was, yeah.
and it directly to the professor.
Okay.
It's nice for
I just started, I did
And it's not,
I was like,
But it kept showing my library.
at some point, take a few minutes.
Okay, we better get moving. So, if you do this. Okay, we better get back to this. So I think what we'll do is that we'll just bring up the database as we're going along here. The first slide, what was it about? Number 3, what were you guys about?
We are about Britannica Online.
Okay, Britannica Online. Oops, I'm not signing on, there we go. Oh, it must still be on just a minute. All right. There we go, okay. Did you want to come up here and do it on this one, or did you want to just talk from there?
It's fine.
Okay,
But our pros were that the levels are broken down into elementary, middle, and high school.
yes.
Yes. Our levels are broken down to in elementary, middle, and high school. You can get it in different languages.
That we found up in,
Harvard.
Yeah.
We were surprised.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat. We were excited.
see?
Yeah.
So,
It also has visuals with the topic.
so if you go into any one of those and just click on the middle or elementary, just, there's a
See, I just
search, instant search button right there, but also,
And if you go up a level and then you go back down, it doesn't go to this kind of kid-friendly interface, so a middle school student who doesn't want anybody to know he's in the elementary level, he starts at the level 2, and when he goes back down, it stays at level 2 interface. in
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
bigger.
neat.
So that's
That's
article
knowledge.
level 2.
And he would just love.
This one?
how that-
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
So, I just-
Is that what you're thinking?
You know, you come here, sit and pick things up.
And then go back to 1, right there.
So start at the middle.
And it doesn't go back to that kid elementary
Oh.
interface.
So it just makes
So
sense.
nobody knows that he's now reading simpler text.
Nice.
Nice.
Did you guys all catch that?
No.
That you can toggle the reading levels right on the article?
But the
So if it
idea-
gets too hard, you can go down.
But nobody, you know, for kids who struggle,
Yes.
the kid 1 interface looks like young kids. And nobody will know he's there.
And I always tell the kids too, and I think it's pretty accurate that, like, the elementary age it's going to be the same information, but at the elementary age, they're not going to assume you know those big words. So either in parentheses or right afterwards, it's going to explain some of the terminology and stuff. Where if you're at a high school level, they're going to assume you know what the different landforms are or whatever, so they might not explain them. So it's still good information. There's no shame in going down a level if that's going to help you get the information that you need.
Or they can have it read to them too.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
reading to them is good.
And of course, they all love the video. And I believe these work well, I'm sorry, these work well with iPads too, don't they? The videos of ours? Okay.
Britannica will also be adding sometime this fall, they tell us, that they're gonna be adding, the Google, share to Google Classroom and share to Google Drive. So those features are not there yet, and we mentioned that when they came and spoke to us about the new features, and they said those were in the works, so.
Okay, are you guys done? I'm sorry. I kind of interrupted you a little bit.
Anything else?
We just said that, it's a vetted source, and we know that for sure. But also for our ideas, I think it works better in our school if you say, okay, you're gonna do this project, let me go in and talk to you. Let's talk about the Britannica, how to do this instead of at a PD. Because our PDs we're worse than the kids. There's so many tangents going on and nobody's paying attention. The football guys are talking football and, so it's much easier to know the project.
And I hope between the three of us, we gave you different things that could work in your districts, because none of ours are the exact scenario for you. But anyway, go ahead. Next, you guys.
We talked about culture, when we looked at culturograms, and it's fast, reliable information on different cultures. We looked at the state of Iowa, but you could also go out onto the world view. So the pros are it's up-to-date, fast information. There's also a kid edition on there from a kid's point of view. We looked at the state's edition most of the time. We can look at some other pros. They have videos on there. It seems to me, like the short amount of time we had, it seemed to be very up-to-date information.
We do need to ask them though to get a bigger picture of Iowa, because their story is not just
What number was
what they
it?
have. And so we must
So
assume
it's fine,
that all
but go
other
and look at it
states,
later. And
except from Wisconsin, are painted with too broad of a brush. Because the second fact is, more hogs than people, but there's so much more about Iowa. Edna Griffin, the Danville sisters who were Holocaust pen pals with Anne Frank. There's many more stories.
I think the point of culturograms was to get fast information, reliable,
But
just
that's
fast.
where, you can say to them, we want more.
Right.
And our state would benefit from
And on the
that.
left-hand side, it went, I think even one part of it that we looked at had recipes, and that maybe not for Iowa, but for another, it did have it.
Yeah.
But they're very typical recipes, they're corn and,
Oh.
right?
My kids love culturograms. And I say to them, you don't just need to use it for school. How many of you catch a blip on the news or something and it's a country you've never heard of before? So there's that one thing that you can pull up the United States and then you can pull up the country next to it and they'll compare currency and population. And mine are always fascinated. I bring up the United States and China and how China is like a third of the size of the United States or something, but it's got 5 times as many people, so you can compare something to something you don't know on
Do you use
culturograms.
those graphs and tables, is that what you're saying? Because those are amazing. Up
Yeah.
at the top, that
I think,
They're,
are you still on the
kids
state
build
edition?
their own.
No, I'm on
That's
China.
China.
Oh, yeah.
See, I really like over here on that last, I always get into the China Today and the family life and the life as a kid.
Oh, the kids love that life
I
as
think
a
that's
kid.
fun.
They do not understand that in some countries by 4th grade you're done with school and you're expected to work and you know all that kind of stuff. And just to let them sit, the way I do it is I introduce a database and then the next time they come they just get to play around and find whatever they want on it. And they are amazed by the facts they find themselves. So then you can say, okay, how might you use this in school? That's when it's like, oh my gosh, we just did a state project. Or
Well, yeah, and you want the kids to get to that point where they're sitting in that classroom with that teacher that's not on board with the AEA databases, now putting the pressure on the teacher. Well, we should be using culturograms. How come we're not using culturograms? You know?
Yeah.
And so,
Do you think this Google account connection is gonna be a game changer? Because
It
they're
is,
doing
and I'll
it
tell you
too,
what,
and
as a
I
tech
think so.
integrationist,
Teen health
this is
and-
the selling point.
Yeah, for
So-
teen health and wellness.
I'm
that's
doing a
important.
session tomorrow on reading research and integrating with Google Classroom. And I pull not only some of these resources, but some other resources that the API button for Classroom is installed on web pages
Yeah.
and resources, and then you push that content out.
I think it's
So,
gonna be a game changer.
That add the Google Classroom feature that's listed there in the article. So for instance, let's say we're doing China.
hey, Carrie, come here and show, because I don't know how to do it. So,
Yeah, you click on add to Google Classroom at the top right there.
here, just come, okay.
See, now
I
that-
just linked
You will
it.
probably have, if you haven't linked it, nope, to the right under listen, the button listen, see where it says add to classroom?
Oh, yeah?
Okay, so let's think integration side. So if we're looking at, and this is probably logged into you, do you have a fake class you could just,
Let's see, one of my fake ones.
okay? Let's say that, this table here is doing China, and you guys are doing Asia, and you're doing something else. So if I go to my classroom and create an assignment, and hit go, and we don't have to send it, we'll just go somewhere.
I don't have students in
Okay, so right now I'm in 4th grade, whatever class it is. If I
Oh, I do have students.
if I go to all students where you were,
Yeah.
click that and uncheck the top. Okay, so now let's say I have 4 of those students that are doing China. And we taught them to log in, we know all that, but maybe I'm teaching constantly out of classroom. So if I select those 4 students, write a note, give them an assignment, attach a Google Doc with the expectations and guidelines for the assignment and what they need to do. Pick a way to present. You can do present, you can do whatever you want. Well, when you create, right now it's just adding the link. When you hit assign, you actually have to go into, there's a go button at the bottom, review. You go into Classroom, then you can add your other resources you want pooled with it. So the idea is that this is easy access for kids to get that documentation and get into it, and it allows those kids to you to push content out individually. So you can do it in different reading or Lexile levels depending on what, like Britannica doesn't, but Gale does. So it's just the idea of what is your instructional piece and how can you build that, and then what resources are available. So for instance, if the kids are doing China and they've logged in like you've taught them, then maybe they can add it to Classroom if they want to share with their or whatever, other students or their team, or they can put it in their drive and they can find it a lot easier.
Well, I didn't even know that till Carrie and our friends outside of all this stuff, and her and I were just talking. I'm like, what do you mean it's linked up, you know? So that's why I didn't know how to do it. But I was just looking at that Save Google right now with my fourth, fifth graders. I'm teaching them right now how to use Google Drive and how to organize their files and blah, 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 you know, the groundwork for their research projects. And my next thing, this next couple weeks, is going to be showing them that save to Google Drive and how to then organize what they're saving on their Drive side. Because I think that's a big thing too, is the organization of it.
I think so too. And with Britannica, we did on the next slide.
Thank you.
When you sign in with that Google Drive or that Google, then you can start populating your folders.
Yes.
And you can talk about personalized organizing.
Yes, and don't be
So I
such a
think-
mess.
Yeah.
And if it's like the flicks don't have that feature, but you can, once you open a book, then you copy and paste the link at the top of the pop-up window, put that in your classroom, and then they can resource and access the book, and then you can tie in all your content with it, so they can just link to the book, just,
The teen health and wellness kids, they don't even have to log in.
Right.
With our district username and password.
some of you do not, some you do.
Because they're on the front end side, or
It says log in with your Google account.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was another huge.
Well, and while you guys are leaving, make sure you refer back to that, because everybody typed it all in, and
Thank you.
so, thanks.